Welcome to the SQL Data Partners podcast. I am your host, Carlos L. Chacon. This is episode 1, and I am super excited to have two of my good friends on the show today, Ayman Al-Ghazali and Tim McAliley. They both work for Microsoft, and we're going to be getting their take on them making their jump to Microsoft, what it takes, and how it is a little bit different from their previous employments, maybe some of the things that they've learned along the way. Of course, if you like the show, we ask that you please leave a rating and even a review. So I met up with these guys in Philadelphia, and we had a chance to talk, and I think you'll find it very interesting. So again, welcome to the show.
SQL Data Partners.
My name is Ayman Al-Ghazali. I am a senior PFE with Microsoft. Just started actually as a senior PFE. I was hired on about a year ago as a senior consultant. So I've been with Microsoft for a year. My specialty is SQL Server. My passion is technology. My sport is soccer.
There you go. You're on Twitter?
I am on Twitter.
The SQL Pro?
The SQL Pro.
Very good.
That is correct.
And his other claim to fame is he does quite a few YouTube videos
So I have a video training series in Arabic, for DBA stuff, and I've started one on BI in Arabic as well. And I have some other stuff, SQL Snacks, they're in English. But there's plenty of smarter people doing English, so I'll stick to Arabic.
Very good. Very nice, very nice. So I don't speak any Arabic, but I did listen to one or two of them. And, it's like I should say a few minutes of one or two of them. And very interesting to see. Very nice to.
The mouse clicks are interesting.
Well, just to hear that, because Arabic's not something that I normally tune into. And so we also have Tim.
No. Hello, my name's Tim McAliley. I've been with Microsoft since October 2012. I'm a SQL Server PFE in the Washington, D.C. area right now, but on Monday I start a new role in commercial sales as an account technology strategist. I'm doing fist pumps right now. My passion, again, I love technology, and I certainly love getting out in the technology community. I co-run the Mobile First, Cloud First user group at DC. We focus on cloud issues broadly, and I also help co-run the Northern Virginia SQL Server users group. And speak somewhere, someplace, 2 or 3 times a month.
All the time.
Yeah.
So you are also on Twitter?
Yes, it says Frameworks.
Says Frameworks. Very good.
I don't know what that means, but it sounded cool. Makes it sound like I'm a product. I'm not a product. I just talk about SQL Server stuff, and occasionally I gripe about Avis. Get it together, Avis.
Very good, very good. Okay, well, thanks for being here. So we want to talk a little bit about working at Microsoft, what it's been like for you, and so let's first, I guess, talk about the hiring process. So there may be some out there that are wondering, right? If I wanted to work at Microsoft, what would I do? And I happen to hold in my hands at the moment, actually, a sheet of paper with some immediate openings. Mm-hmm. And these are all specific to the SQL Server, I do see project management in here.
SQL Server Platforms Account Management.
Okay. So there's quite a few positions there. So I guess first, what would someone do if they wanted to get hired by Microsoft?
So first of all, they'd need the intention, right? Getting off the bat. But really, it depends on what you want to do. If you're going to be a technical person, obviously you got to be the top of your game. Clean up your resume, do training. If you can, certification definitely helps because it shows that you're committed to getting certified. And just the certification process by itself is a good training as well. And then you apply. I've had tons and tons of interviews. I've had with SQL MCMs from overseas, from the United States. I've interviewed overseas as well, in Egypt at some point. So one of the things, obviously, passing the tech screens is a big deal. So if you can pass the tech screen, that's excellent. But at the other side, there needs to be, that social match, not the soft skills. And there needs to be that the other piece of the actual job is there and the need is there. Sometimes
Sure.
Clients fall through and stuff like that. So
Opportunities aren't available. So you talked about, I guess, so the different phases. So you go and you apply. I see a link here, careers.microsoft.com. You'll see some availabilities. You submit your resume. Let's say they call you. What kind of levels of screening are you going to go through?
Well, you can go through several. So I had an initial HR screen, to make sure I was a mammal.
Okay.
Once that was established, I was sent to a tech screen, and I had about a 90-minute tech screen to talk about SQL Server issues. And if you're going to get a platforms job or an Exchange job or SharePoint job, you're going to have that tech screen. It's usually on the phone, and it's to just kind of make sure you know the basics. And then how you do on that tech screen, you'll be passed on for probably a finals day interview. And what the finals day interview is, it'll be 6 to 8 people usually, one person per hour for 6 to 8 hours, where you meet account managers, your program manager for the project on which you're going to work. They might pull in peers who might work not directly on the same project that you're being hired for, but maybe in the same team, so they can assess you. Yeah, and it's like Ayman said, it's a social fit assessment, a technical fit assessment, and they're trying to see how well you would fit into the overall Microsoft scheme of things. And then on top of that, just exactly like Ayman said, there needs to be a customer on the other end waiting for you, particularly if you're applying for a services job, because those are usually mapped to existing or pending contracts.
I see. Are both of you involved in that sort of? You have a specific client that you normally work through?
That depends, because you can either be, in our roles, you can be either designated to a customer, or you can be designated to blocks of customers in 400 and 800 hours, or you can be transactional, where you're a transactional premier field engineer, where you're dispatched to customer sites. And in that case, you might go, out of 40 weeks, you might go to 40 different customers and do a range of things from risk assessment, best practices reviews, ad hoc knowledge transfers or formal classes, or break fix.
And from the consulting side, which I have more experience in, it's very similar. You're architecting new systems. You're generally there, generally for longer term, maybe 4 weeks, 8 weeks. I've been on a client for 9 months. Some people have been for years. Sometimes you get a week where you're just doing a demo for a new product, 2014 BI, or now it would be 2016, and that sort of thing. And with regards to the interviewing, sometimes they do a full finals day. Sometimes it's a little bit shorter. It really depends. And one other thing that I thought about was getting out to community events like this. I got this job by meeting Tim and Paul Rizza, who both referred me. So I'm not going to lie, referral gets you in front of the hiring managers a little bit easier.
Sure.
So if you're out there in the community and people notice that, they tend to help you out. And you just said, you want me to refer you? And I was like, heck yeah.
And I'll add 2 things to that. I also got my job with Microsoft through community exposure. I was running a Jacksonville IT Pro Camp, and I met one of my mentors now, Blaine Barton. He's a platforms evangelist out of the Tampa, Florida area, and he put my resume in the hopper probably in late June, early July of 2012, and I started the Microsoft hiring process toward the end of July of 2012. And then the only other thing I'll add is that during my interviewing process, I had a specific hour-long session where I was asked to describe my community involvement.
Okay.
So at the time I still am, but I was heavily involved in community activities, so I was able to tee that one up and knock it over the fence.
Sure. So let's talk a little bit about the community responsibilities. I mean, I know that in certain instances, I guess I think about the classic one of even the 64-bit architecture. There were several organizations or platforms that were kind of sitting on the sidelines, waiting for Microsoft to come out and do the community work, the legwork, to do the explaining, and okay, this is how all these things work, because they have that large infrastructure. So is there that expectation that as you join, that you will continue to be involved in the community and doing the sharing components?
I know on the timesheet, just on a basic administration level, there's an area on our timesheets where it's for community events or non-sanctioned IP community mentoring. So yeah, it's at an administrative level, there's an accommodation for it, and also there's an encouragement about, and also during our performance evaluations, you're more than welcome to put in, all your community involvement as a consideration for how well you did.
And because the thing is, Microsoft's a for-profit, So obviously we want people to use our products, so we evangelize them. But at the same time, we get to meet our clients on a less formal, setting and
Sure.
whatnot. So it's important to do that. And as well as the fact that, working in services, it's important to get that, they're not customers, but that customer-facing experience, because we do a lot of presentations, workshops, talking about technology. So there's a saying that, if you teach something, you know it really well. So
Right.
coming out, being part of the community is going to build a lot of those soft skills that you might not get sitting in front of your computer, right?
So another nod to the idea that it is more than just about the technology, right? There are the soft skills, the interactions that that are required. So you mentioned mentors, right? So we've gone through the process. It sounds like a fairly grueling process. It could be.
Well, for the position that I'm moving to on Monday, because it kind of spanned over 2 positions, I counted it up. I did 14 one-hour sessions, sometimes with the same person twice, but it was 14 units of time to get, and that was an internal move.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
consider
maybe not for the faint of heart, right?
Yeah,
So yeah.
I consider myself well vetted.
Very good, very good. So you mentioned mentors. So you've gone through the process, right? You get that not acceptance letter, but the offer on the table. So what's about the mentoring process?
They try to align you with a mentor as soon as you come on board, and it might be multiple people. Ayman asked me to be one of his mentors for whether I did a good job or not, but just to kind of help guide him on. But he also had, because he was a consultant, he needed mentors who were also in the the consulting area. And when I got on board, my mentor was a fellow PFE, a senior PFE. But now that I do more community stuff, I have an evangelist mentor. So they're super serious about that.
And sometimes you get a mentor within your practice, within your technology. So the 2 mentors I got that were assigned to me, other than Tim, were, one of them was a SharePoint guy. So he's a career mentor for me. He's not going to talk to me about SQL. And then the other guy was a SQL dev. So I'm more on the DBA side. But, luckily for me, we worked on the same project, my other mentor and myself. So it is good to have that. And managers try their best to pick someone who's a good fit for you personality-wise as well. Because you like for me, my mentors, I'm always going to be interacting with them. Even though I've rolled off, you usually roll off 6 months to a year from your mentor, but I keep in touch with them regularly. So they want to build that relationship because it builds that sense of community internally as well. And we always receive, but to give is a big deal. Microsoft does a big give program internally where they would match, I think, up to $15,000 a year of your own contributions to charities and whatnot, and your hours that you put for volunteering and all that. And now they've actually upped that. So they're really about giving back because they understand we're privileged, we're in a good place. So that's part of the culture, which is one of the things I love about working there, to be honest.
So all of those trainings are made available to you. I mean, is that a fair formal training that they have on a regular basis, or a lot of those it seems like you reach out and kind of can find answers and look up things, or I guess what's the
So on the topic of training, and that's really based on your role. If you're on maybe like a premier role in services, like a premier field engineer, the training is really focused around you getting accredited to deliver the training at a customer site. And so the training's formal. Some of it's on site at a training center, like a Microsoft training center, or it might be over Link, but it's always taught by a fellow Microsoft over Skype. Skype for Business, everyone. It's delivered over Skype for Business, and it's a train-the-trainer technique where you might watch the instructor tee off of the first few modules of the training, and then you and your other co-students, your other students in the class, finish up the course and handle at least 1 or 2 modules for the rest of the class. So you act as a presenter and demonstrator. So you have to start day 1 knowing it in case the instructor says, "Okay, Tim, you're going to handle 10 o'clock on SQL Server locks and latches. Go." Yeah.
Well, hence I guess some of the processes of going through the interview process.
That's right.
To flush some of that out. So I guess you always feel like you are up on the latest and greatest, and I think part of that would be fairly difficult. Microsoft is always coming out with all kinds of different products. The announcement of SQL Server 2016, right, just came out, at least in the SQL Server world. So how do you manage, I guess, how do you balance that learning and working balance. I think all of us struggle a little bit with that.
I don't have a good answer. It's just a challenge, and they're hoping that they bring people on board who are interested in learning the new thing, and there's really that reliance that hopefully in the end that they realize they've got a team on board that's interested in learning about 2016, SQL Server 2016, and learning about Office 365 and learning about Azure. Some of that you do on your own, but there's all kind of training opportunities. Particularly if you want to train on your own and stay cutting edge on your own, it's literally a bottomless resource to dig into.
Of knowledge,
Yeah.
no question. I mean, I would think anyone in that, I mean, even in the, if you're going to stay in technology, I think you have to make the commitment to continuous learning.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult to progress, to find other opportunities if you're not willing to put in the time to to do that learning.
Right. If you're entrenched around SQL Server 2005, awesome.
Yeah,
But you might want to rethink your career growth and your strategy on your learning plan.
And I was going to say as well, they do encourage you to go a little bit wide sometimes. If you're doing SQL stuff, maybe learn a little BI just to expand our platforms, because it's all built on one. And within the hours that you do as a consultant or as a PFE, you're given an allocation of hours that you need to complete in the year, 1,600. So, and part of that, they calculate, your vacation. They calculate, I think, 2 or 3 weeks worth of training and all that sort of thing.
4 weeks of training.
4 weeks of training. So typically you would work Monday to Thursday, and then Friday is the day that you would be doing your administrative stuff, training. I mean, you could work your Monday to Fridays and then take a week off and do training because you've made up all those hours. So basically you're responsible, kind of choose your own destiny. You have a set amount of hours that you need to do in the year. You do that, and then the rest is kind of in your hands.
Here's what it's akin to. If someone was to set up a shop for you to be an independent consultant, which you know a lot about, this basically puts you in an environment to behave like an independent consultant with obviously a tremendous amount of infrastructure. Yeah. So you work with your customer to determine your schedule and your expectations for your on-site and off-site time. You interact with your peers to make sure you're implementing the right solutions and reach out for help. You interact with your manager to make sure that you're in compliance with things like time and billing and expense policy. But you're really given a lot of tools if you're interested in becoming an independent consultant later down the road because of the flexibility that you have.
So part of that, I guess that training. So, Ayman, are you allowed? Is part of like your YouTube videos or that training? Can that be part of your training, or is that above and beyond?
So I put that on. We have these connects that we do with our managers, which is basically like one-on-ones. You do one a quarter, just to keep things flowing with your management team and whatnot. And I put that kind of thing as my community contribution. So they look at that positively as how you're contributing to, number one, your own team. Number one, your practice. So if you work for public sector or whatever it is. And then, Microsoft is a whole company as that third level. And then the world outside. And I can't really justify, because somebody watched my training, they purchased this amount of product. But it's still, you can say that evangelizing the product and having people reach in a market that's not penetrated.
Sure.
So they look positively on that because you're also helping yourself, getting your name out there, getting the product name out there. So I always make a note of these contributions that I'm doing, and it's been appreciated so far. So I'm happy for that.
So I heard that every Microsoft employee has to have at least one Azure certification.
At least services in certain categories.
Yeah, PFEs and consultants. TAMs have their own pitch perfect training that they have to attend, which is a little bit less technical. Consultants only had the option of architecting.
Yeah.
And to kind of bounce off of what Tim said, consultants generally have to be a little bit more broad because they're developing a solution. So they may be in a client site where they have SharePoint and BI and SCOM and SCCM and that sort of thing. We're a PFE, and again, it depends on the client. You may be only touching the SQL piece of things. I have a client where they're doing SQL with SCOM and SCCM. So I'm starting to learn about the different pieces of that to understand how it's collecting data and how to performance tune it, because it's different than doing performance tuning for SharePoint, right?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So it really depends. And I always say, like, it's kind of like a pyramid, and I'm not using that because I'm from Egypt, no. But the wider your base, generally the higher you can build up. So if you're going to build that nice wide base of general knowledge about everything, SQL, platform, SharePoint, and then you can start building up and specializing, Edwin Sarmiento used to mentor me, inform me a little bit, and he said, jack of all trades, master of one, right?
Right.
And that's kind of how you would be successful.
Right. I think, again, that's a little bit of that nod to the continual learning, right? I think too many times, and we're going down a little bit of a professional development idea here, but too many times I hear, well, that's not my job, right? Or I'm not going to do that, right? And
Don't
I think
say that in the interview.
it's so limiting, right? If you have that idea or philosophy of, well, I'm a SQL Server guy, for example, I'm not going to do SharePoint. Like, what? I think the opportunities that are available to you. I've told this story before, right? But going through college, I was going to be a network guy, right? I took 2 database courses in college. I hated both of them. And I said, I will never be a DBA. I cannot believe that they're making, I almost tried to find another way, some other classes, right? When I had to take the second database course, because I was like, I'm never going to do this, right? And lo and behold, right? I mean, fast forward a little bit, here I am.
Yeah.
And so that idea of that it will never be needed. And again, we even talk about networking, right? So now let's say to use the SharePoint example, you have to reach out to someone to help you with SharePoint. You don't know what future interactions you might have with that person, right? That could be beneficial.
And you kind of sometimes internally try to drive your own career. Like if you're proactive, and we usually, for consulting side, they'd have a list of clients. So if you're proactive, you can try to get a client that's more inclined to what you want to do. If you want to do more infrastructure DBA stuff, you can kind of try to get that client. If you want to do BI, you do. PFE sometimes you can do, depending. So you can kind of drive your career, and always talk to your manager about, I've been working on SharePoint a lot. I'm not that passionate about it. I'm more passionate about infrastructure SQL or BI or development. And you have those discussions to try to build up your career. Everybody there is there to help you, because they know that helping you helps the company.
And I've had a range of engagements. I've had transactional engagements where I do risk assessments in classes and little ad hoc brown bag sessions. And I've had engagements where I just kind of sit behind the customer and watch them right click and step through the interface with me kind of guiding.
Right.
And
Don't click that button.
That's right. And I've had a couple of engagements where I was the operations DBA, where I was hands on the keyboard, and everyone that ran the infrastructure was from Microsoft. So
I've got to see. So from a consulting perspective, that's one of the things I really enjoy about consulting is being able the diversity, right, of the different environments. I've got to think, just from your discussions, that getting into those different environments, like it
depends.
So there's always going to be an environment that you don't necessarily care for, right?
Right.
So a week or an engagement, you'd be like, yeah, I'm glad that's over.
Yes. Environments where it's just difficult. It's a challenge because there's a compliance issue with how the system's configured, and the customer may or may not have a mature change management process. So the recommendations you make might not see the light of day for a couple of months, and
it can be frustrating waiting for the change to take
place.
place.
Because you're kind of want things to go, and you can certainly explain the pros and cons, the security implications, the risks of your recommendations or the Microsoft best practices. But if there's some type of compliance pushback and you're just in a waiting game, that's been the most frustrating at times. But that's a customer by customer basis.
Sure. So we spoke actually before we started recording, and as you get you work for Microsoft, you get a badge with your name on it, and that there's a blue border. And so lots of different organizations, right, have different badges, and as a contractor, right, I always have the other color.
Right.
And so now that you both have a blue badge, right, what are people's reaction to you right now that you're a Microsoft employee?
Well, sometimes I get questions. I'll get off-the-wall questions because I am a Microsoft employee. I'll get someone, when are you going to fix the Zune? I got 40 gigs of content on there and I can't get it off. I don't have a good answer. So those are some more common. Some of the more interesting ones, though, you walk into a customer site and there might be some territorialism. We're not out to take anyone's job or move anybody. We're trying to help people with solutions, help the customer make the best choices, and then maybe move on to the next engagement. So there's a little bit of territorialism, sometimes some tension or some hesitancy to work with us, but our focus is to be a pleasurable, co-worker type relationship, sorry, I have to cut this out, sort of an SME type role where we're not there to challenge, we're just there to help provide good guidance, So I get a little bit of pushback sometimes, but.
There you go.
So I haven't gotten any marriage proposals, so just to let you know, I'm already married.
You're already married,
just to let you know.
Off the market.
So that was a poor attempt at a joke, but anyways. So the territorial issue is one, and sometimes people see you and they have a big target on your back. Sometimes people are happy to see you. I've had a client out in Denver who was happy to see me, and I went through and did everything, and I was like, why am I even here? They're like, well, we already discussed all this with management, and they wouldn't believe us. So we're glad to have you here. You can just reiterate what we said and then move on. And then from the community perspective, it's double-edged. So I have a lot of friends in the community before I became a Microsoft guy, and things haven't changed. And there have been other people that have taken notice and said, oh, you work for Microsoft now? Remember when we interviewed you a long time ago and this and this and that? And I was thinking in my head, yeah, I remember when you interviewed and screwed me over. Yeah, I remember. So you get a different feeling.
Sure. I think from the community, you have a little leg up, right? You're
a little bit, but
you've gone through the grind, right, of the interview process.
I'm still me. So sure. Whether I have a blue badge or not, I don't like people treating me better because I do or not. I mean, I'm a victim of negative discrimination. So maybe this is positive. I should be happy. I don't know, but I have my friends in the community, and I appreciate them being as friendly before and after. So
very good, very good. Well, thanks for the discussion. I think it's been good, and I've definitely learned a little bit about what it's like to work for Microsoft. We have a couple of questions we'd like to pose to both of you as we as we wrap up. And so here I have down embarrassing moment, and neither one of them really wanted to talk about their most embarrassing. So it turns out the most embarrassing question wasn't a very good question. I was hoping they were going to tell me something good, but they didn't. So let's just skip ahead to the next question.
And here, let me add to Ayman's comments. So when we talked earlier about collaboration and teamwork, I overscoped or underscoped the requirements of a briefing on BI, and I was supposed to be presenting to, I just thought, vanilla BI, here's the stack generically kind of users, but as we approached the delivery date for a half day chalk talk, it was no, data scientists who wanted deeper questions about the calculation capabilities of SSAS, the different features inside of BI. They wanted some deeper explanations. And I realized that I was out of my league and this wasn't going to work. And Ayman, in the darkness of the morning, responded over Skype and got online and delivered the session.
Wow.
Because I would not have delivered what they wanted. He delivered the session and got major kudos for them, which led to the next part of the roadmap for something like that, which is a sort of a data assessment to move on to a BI engagement. So great networking, great friend, great coworker, and I was able to reach out immediately and get some backup because I was on the way to having an embarrassing story on that one.
Well, it was funny because they didn't think they were on mute, and I had talked to them about a bunch of, I'd gone through slides. And then as I'm going through the slides, I'm trying to get my VM up and running to demo it. And I could hear them saying, yeah, this is not going to work. Let's cancel this, blah, 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 blah. So like, can you give me 10 minutes as I bring my VM up? And I'm in my pajamas at this point. I go to the bathroom because I'm like sweating and, nervousness makes me want to go to the bathroom. I come out and then, everything worked out for the demo, worked fine. So I kind of lucked out on that and they liked it. It was enough of my BSing to get by. So.
He was literally going to Codeplex to go get the AdventureWorks.
And I could never recover. Every time I tried to attach that database, it would give me a failure. Except on that day. I was like, yes, my prayers have been answered.
Yeah.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, so to close this out, and last question: best thing about working at Microsoft?
I don't know. It's the best job I've ever had. I feel like I'm able to do what I want and and have control over the direction that my career is going. At some previous career endeavors, you're kind of maybe either holding back a little bit because you know it might not be the best direction for you, so you're standing off a little bit so you can have room to pivot. But with Microsoft, I haven't held back at all. I've just started swinging from the fences from day one, and at least on a karmic level and a career path level, it's paid off so far. So it's just best job I've ever had, and it's most of the environment and the coworkers that make it like that.
I would say just the issue of respect. Respect from a social standpoint, diversity. People appreciate you, even if you're different. They might not necessarily accept your beliefs or how you are different, but there's just that respect because it's so multicultural and so diverse. And the other side is from the technical perspective. I've been in training sessions with PFEs who I would think are probably 1 billion times smarter than me, literally like 1 billion or maybe 1.5. And they would just say good things about you and about other people, and they wouldn't put you down. Managers that are respectful and appreciate the work you do and give you encouragement, and colleagues that see that spark and flare in you and kind of like respect that and try to help you out. It's just that place where you feel like, it's tough. It's not an easy job. It's stressful. I haven't been able to blog as much and stuff, but you feel like your work is respected and people respect you for who you are and what you bring, even though you're amongst people who I would consider myself at the very bottom and everyone else is super genius, but they don't make you feel that way, which is great.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like a fraud, like this whole thing is going to be revealed, and jokes on you. But
very supportive.
Yeah, that's why we're here. Actually, You're fired.
Oh boy, I knew it.
Okay, compañeros, thanks again for tuning in. We had another great session. So Tim, Ayman, thanks for being here.
Yeah, man, anytime.
And again, if you're interested in making a jump to Microsoft, you can head to careers.microsoft.com. And we hope to see you on the SQL Trail. Bye-bye now.